Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not here today to hand you answers. I'm here to change the way you ask questions. Because if you learn to think correctly, really correctly, no problem is too big, no obstacle is permanent, and no future is out of reach. Most people don't fail because they're stupid. They don't fail because they're lazy. They fail because the way they think is broken. Success was never about talent. It was always about mindset. Look around. The world is drowning in complaints. People complain about their jobs, their bosses, their governments, their childhoods, their luck. And I understand some of it is genuinely unfair. But let me ask you something. In the history of human progress, how many problems were solved by complaining? 0. No. 1. Complaining is the most expensive habit in the world because it costs you time, energy, and momentum and gives you absolutely nothing in return. It keeps you exactly where you are, just angry about it. The people who actually move the world forward are not the ones with the fewest problems. They're the ones who get tired of waiting. Every company you admire, every product you use, every idea that changed your life, someone saw a mess and decided to clean it up instead of just photographing it and complaining online. Think about it. Mark Zuckerberg didn't build Facebook because connecting with people was easy. He built it because it wasn't. The founders of Airbnb weren't born wealthy with connections in hospitality. They were broke, sleeping on air mattresses, and they turned that problem into $1 billion idea. The greatest businesses in history didn't start with money or luck. They started with someone deciding to stop staring at the problem and start building the solution. No, is life fair? No, absolutely not. Some people are born on third base. Others start the game in the parking lot. That is real. But here is what is equally real. The people who win are really the ones who started with the most. They're the ones who stopped calculating what they lacked and started moving with what they had. Next time you catch yourself complaining, stop. Ask one question. What can I actually do right now? Even a small step, even one, because action, no matter how small, will always outrun frustration. A negative mind sees walls everywhere. A creative mind sees doors. Stop complaining. Start building the moment you flip that switch from problem to solution. You'll be shocked how many opportunities were hiding in plain sight the whole time. No, let's talk about something that kills more dreams than failure ever could. Impatience. We live in a world that has convinced people that speed equals success. Fast money, quick results, overnight fame. Social media shows you the highlight reel, the mention, the car, the announcement, but it never shows you the 10 years of invisibility that came before it. And because people only see the arrival, they think the journey should be short. It isn't. It never was. Look at the companies that now run the world. Apple, Amazon, Tesla, nobody handed them the keys. Amazon started as a website selling books out of a garage. For years, it barely broke. Even investors were nervous. Critics were loud. But Jeff Bezos wasn't thinking about next quarter. He was thinking about the next decade. He kept building, kept reinvesting, kept playing a game most people couldn't even see yet. Today, Amazon is one of the most powerful businesses ever created. Meanwhile, most people only think about this week. They take the job that pays more right now instead of the one that teaches more for later. They want investments that double overnight instead of building wealth that compounds over years. They start a business, don't see profit in 6 months, and quit right before things would have started to turn. This is not a talent problem. This is a patience problem. Think about a farmer. A farmer plants seeds, waters the soil, and then waits for weeks or months. They don't dig up the ground every 3 days asking why nothing has grown yet. They trust the process. They know the timeline. But people approach their own lives completely differently. They plant something on Monday and want to harvest by Friday. And when it doesn't come, they call it failure. If you learn to think long term, everything changes. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop making decisions based on what feels good today. You start asking better questions. Not, how do I make money fast? But, what am I building? And where will it take me in 5 years? Because in 5 years, the person who invested in learning and growing every single day will be unrecognizable compared to the person who spent those same years looking for the quick win. Here is the real question, where do you want to be in 10 years? If you don't have an answer, you are already drifting. The people who succeed are the ones who pick a direction and stay in the game long enough to see it pay off. You have two choices. Think short term and keep resetting from zero, or think long term and build something that actually lasts. Let's talk about failure. Because most people have completely the wrong relationship with it. People fear failure the way they fear embarrassment. They avoid it, they hide from it, and when it finally finds them anyway, they take it personally. They decide it means something about who they are. But here is the truth, that the most successful people in the world already know failure is not the opposite of success. It is one of the main ingredients. Every great leader, every founder who built something that mattered, every athlete who reached the top, they all failed repeatedly, publicly, painfully. The difference between them and everyone else is not that they failed less, it is that they refused to let failure write the final sentence. When you fail, you get a choice. You can treat it as evidence that you don't belong, that you are not smart enough, not talented enough, not lucky enough, or you can treat it as data, feedback, a very expensive lesson that just saved you from a much bigger mistake. Later, most people pick the first option. And that is exactly why most people stop growing. Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times developing the light bulb. When someone asked how he kept going, he said he hadn't failed, he'd found 1,000 ways that didn't work. Think about that. 1,000 attempts. Most people quit after 3. Our entire modern world runs on electricity. And it almost didn't happen because one person refused to give up. Steve Jobs was removed from Apple, the company he founded with his own hands. Most people in that situation would disappear quietly. Jobs went and built new companies, developed new ideas, and came back with enough knowledge to turn Apple into the most valuable company on the planet. No iPhone, no iPad, none of it. If he had decided that failure meant stop, the problem is the way we're taught to see failure. School punishes mistakes. Workplaces reward playing it safe. Society quietly tells you that falling down means you weren't good enough to begin with. But look at any child learning to walk. They fall constantly, dozens of times a day. They don't stop and think, maybe walking isn't for me. They get up. They try differently. And eventually they run. We are born with the right relationship with failure. Then life teaches us the wrong one. If you want to grow, really grow, you have to take risks, knowing some of them will not work. You have to try things knowing some of them will embarrass you. Comfort is the enemy of progress. If you are never uncomfortable, you are not pushing hard enough. Failure is not the end of the story. It is just the part before the story gets interesting. Now let's talk about something most people completely underestimate. The people around you, your environment is not just your office or your neighborhood. Your environment is about 5 people you spend the most time with. The habits become your habits, the excuses become your excuses, the ceiling becomes your ceiling. It doesn't matter how talented you are, how hard you work, or how big your dreams are. The wrong people will slowly drain all of it out of you without you even noticing. Here is a simple way to think about it. Put yourself in a room with 5 people who are building something, growing something, pushing themselves every single day. And eventually, almost inevitably, but spend enough time with 5 people who complain, make excuses, and treat ambition like it is naive. And you will start to sound exactly like them. No, because you are weak. Because that is just how human beings work. Energy is contagious. Attitude spreads. And mediocrity, if you are not careful, is the most contagious thing of all. Look at every great entrepreneur, every elite athlete, every leader who built something meaningful. None of them did it alone. Behind every person you admire is a circle of people who challenged them, pushed them, corrected them, and refused to let them settle. They didn't just get lucky with talent. They were strategic about who they allowed close. One of the hardest things you will ever do is walk away from people who no longer serve your growth. No, because those people are bad, but because some relationships belong to a chapter of your life that is already finished. Ask yourself, honestly, do the people around you pull you forward or anchor you in place? Do they celebrate your wins or go quiet when you succeed? Do they push you toward your potential or remind you of your limitations? Those answers matter more than most people admit. And understand, this is not about cutting off anyone who is struggling. Struggle is not the problem. A person who is broke but hungry, optimistic, but not yet successful, working hard but not yet arrived, that person is exactly who you want around you. What you want to avoid is not poverty or difficulty. What you want to avoid is people who have decided that nothing can change. People who have made peace with smallness and want company in that decision. Seek mentors aggressively. Find people who have already walked the road you are trying to walk. A good mentor can compress a decade of mistakes into a single conversation. They can show you what not to do, where the real traps are, and what actually matters versus what only looks like it matters. But understand, a real mentor does not just tell you what you want to hear. A real mentor makes you uncomfortable. They challenge your assumptions. They point at your blind spots. If your mentor only ever agrees with you, find a better mentor. Also, and this is important, be honest about toxic relationships. If someone consistently drains your energy, plants doubt in your mind, or quietly resents your progress, you don't owe them your future. No, everyone is meant to travel the whole journey with you. Some people are meant for a season. Letting go is not betrayal, it is clarity. But here is the part people always skip. You have to become the right person too. You cannot spend your days complaining, gossiping, and wasting time, and then wonder why you are not attracting driven, serious, ambitious people. If you want to be around people who are building something, become someone who is building something. Raise your own standard first and watch how your circle starts to shift. Your network is not just a career tool, it is the ecosystem in which your potential either grows or withers. Choose that ecosystem wisely, protect it deliberately, and never forget, the ceiling of your circle is often the ceiling of your life. Let's talk about learning. Because the moment you stop learning, you don't just stay the same, you fall behind. The world is not waiting for you to catch up. Technology is moving. Industries are being rebuilt. Skills that were valuable 5 years ago are being automated or replaced. The people who thrive in this environment are not necessarily the smartest people in the room. They are the most curious. They are the ones who treat every day like there's still something important they haven't figured out yet. Most people make a fatal mistake. They treat education like a phase. You go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, and then you stop. Learning is over. No, you just apply what you already know. But that assumption is becoming more dangerous every single year. The real world doesn't care about the certificate you earned a decade ago. It cares about what you can do right now. Look at the people running the biggest companies on earth. Elon Musk manages multiple industries. Electric vehicles, space travel, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, and he is still reading, still learning, still going deep into fields. Most executives never bother to understand. Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest people alive, spends the majority of his day reading, no managing, no attending meetings. These are people who have already won by any conventional measure, and they still behave like students. Then look at people who are stuck. No, always stuck because of bad luck or unfair circumstances. Sometimes stuck simply because they stop updating themselves. Same skills from 10 years ago. Same thinking from 15 years ago. Expecting the world to reward them for knowledge that the world has already moved past. They're not failing because they're not trying. They're failing because they're trying with outdated tools. Learning is not just about books, though books matter enormously. Learning is about how you approach every single experience. Every failure teaches you something if you are willing to sit with it long enough. Every difficult conversation holds a lesson if you are paying attention. Every person you meet who thinks differently than you is a chance to expand how you see the world. The question is whether you are curious enough to notice, make learning non-negotiable. Read books that stretch you, not just books that confirm what you already believe. Listen to people who challenge your assumptions. Sit with mentors who have done what you want to do. Ask questions even when it feels like you should already know the answer. Because the embarrassment of asking lasts for a moment, and the cost of not knowing can last years. The more you learn, the more capable you feel. The more capable you feel, the more confidently you act. The more confidently you act, the more confidently you act, the better your results. It is a compounding cycle. And it starts with the simple decision to stay curious. Knowledge is not a destination. And the people who practice it daily are the ones who 10 years from now will be completely unrecognizable from where they started. And finally, mindset, specifically the mindset of ownership. Success today is not about following instructions. Well, it is not about showing up on time and doing what you are told and hoping someone notices. That model is finished. The world rewards people who take initiative, who solve problems nobody asks them to solve, and who treat their work as if their name is on the door, whether it is or not. Most people walk into their jobs thinking like passengers. They're along for the ride. They do what is required, avoid what is uncomfortable. And at the end of the month, collect their payment and start over. And then they wonder why nothing changes, why they're not growing, why 5 years pass, and they're in the exact same place they started. The people who move up in any field, in any industry, in any economy, are the ones who think like owners. They don't wait for problems to be assigned to them. They find problems and fix them. They don't ask what the job description says. They ask what the company actually needs. They treat every project as if its outcome reflects directly on them, because in the long run, it does. Howard Schultz didn't found Starbucks. He joined it as an employee, but he walked into that company thinking like a founder. He saw what it could become that others couldn't see yet. He took risks, pushed ideas, and eventually transformed a small coffee chain into a global cultural institution. If he had shown up thinking like a passenger, he would have remained one. The difference was never the title, it was the mindset. Here is the shift that changes everything. Stop asking, what do I get from this job? And start asking, what am I doing to this job? Because even if you never start your own company, the skills, the reputation, the relationships, and the experience you accumulate are yours. Nobody can take those. And the person who spends 10 years building those things deliberately will have more real leverage than the person who spent 10 years just collecting paychecks. Take versus the pot, the most of it. It is easy to blame the economy, the company, the manager, the timing, and sometimes those things genuinely get in the way. But the moment you outsource responsibility for your life to external circumstances, you also outsource your power to change it. The entrepreneurs, the leaders, the people who build something from nothing, they all shared one trait. They refuse to wait for permission. They refuse to make circumstances the excuse. If you are not where you want to be, stop asking why the world hasn't handed it to you and start asking what you need to become to earn it. What skills are missing? What habits are costing you? What thinking is keeping you small? Those are the questions that lead somewhere. So here is where we land. Stop complaining. Start solving. Stop chasing the quick win. Start building something that lasts. Stop running from failure. Start extracting every lesson it carries. Protect your circle. Build it with people who make you better. Never stop learning. The moment you think you know enough, you've already started falling behind. And think like an owner who started to reward passengers. The thinking is the starting point. Get the thinking right, and the actions follow. Get the actions right, and the results follow. It is never as complicated as we make it. Most of the gap between where you are and where you want to be is not talent, not luck. Not timing, it is the story you are telling yourself every morning about what is possible. Change everything. Thank you.